If you want any more proof why we need to be turning immigration over to the states, well, here you go. So this is, I think it's Brooklyn Park in Minnesota, suburb of Minneapolis, for the Twin Cities. Police Chief Mark Bruley, and he held a presser, I think, yesterday, talking about some of these instances. Well, in one instance, he talks about where an off-duty officer was stopped by ICE. He's saying harassed by ICE. So I want you to hear this, and then I'm going to talk about this after he's done. So let's get to this. Welcome back to the channel, Cultural Confederacy. Here it's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Now, if you're new to the channel, pardon me, I don't use any graphics or anything, or any fancy graphics, anything like that. What you see is what you get. We talk about the news of the day. It's anything goes. We could talk about history, music, culture, you name it. So let's get to this, and we do these in one take. They are what they are, which I think is the charm of the channel. But thank you again for watching and subscribing if you've been with me for a while. So let's get to this. This is Police Chief, Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley, yesterday, talking about what's going on with ICE in the Twin Cities.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Bruley, Police Chief of the City of Brooklyn Park. Behind me is a bunch of amazing police chiefs that are here in support of a very short but very important message that we want to share with you. What you won't hear from many of us today is rhetoric of abolish ICE or that there shouldn't be immigration enforcement. The truth is, immigration enforcement is necessary for our national security and for local security. But how it's done is extremely important. In fact, we have a long history of working exceptionally well with our federal partners, including ICE agents. And we have seen the best of them perform their job extremely well in the past. With that said, recently, as the last 2 weeks, we, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down.
So I'll stop it there. I don't want to take too much with this clip here or too much time on the video. But I think we have a real issue here. And this just goes to show, as I said, that it's time that we bring immigration back to the states. Now, in a previous video, I talked about how the Constitution does give Congress the power to create a law or a uniform rule of naturalization. I think that's how it's worded in the Constitution. You can correct me in the comment section below. But it also states in the Constitution, in Article 1, I believe it's Section 10, no, it's Section 9 and 10. It talks about the powers of the state, or the states rather, what they can and can't do. But it says that the states have the right to decide who they want or who they don't want in their states. Now, at that time, it dealt more with slavery, but that could also include, that clause, or that section could include immigration. So what I think we need to do here I think that these states need to get together, call a constitutional convention, and specifically address this issue of immigration, maybe a couple other issues as well, and really think about bringing immigration back to the states, because I think that's the only way you're going to solve this problem. You can't have ICE officers, and I'm all for, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'm all for going after illegal immigrants, but there's a way to do it. And you don't harass ordinary citizens or demand their papers when they're legal citizens. You are not allowed as an ICE agent to detain a legal U.S. citizen unless, let's say, they are obstructing that specific operation that ICE agents are involved in, or you're somebody who is involved in an illegal immigration ring, from my understanding of what I've read here. So I don't know what you ICE agents are thinking, but you can't just go out there and rule the roost. Our taxes pay your salary. You are given that position in good faith that you're going to do what's in the best interest of the citizens of this thing called the United States. And if your job is to go after illegal immigrants, then there's a way to do it. You get a warrant, and this should be done in coordination with, now I'm not saying that it isn't, but this should be done all the time in coordination with local law enforcement, with the local courts. You go to local court, the courthouse, you get a warrant, and you go out and you find these people. But this whole business of pulling people out of their vehicles, no. Tell them to show you their papers just because they may look this way or the other. You know, that's not the way you handle things. That's Nazi Germany, in my humble opinion. We don't do that here. We have a rule of law for a reason. We have a separation of powers for a reason. So I'm calling these ICE agents ICE's useful idiots. And Trump needs to stop worrying about trying to obtain Greenland. And he needs to focus on what's happening in his own backyard. Because apparently there are some abuses happening here with ICE that people on the right don't want to talk about. And I don't care if you're right or left. I could care less. I believe in doing what's right because it's the right thing to do. But you can't be going out there, as I said, and going after people like this based on an assumption. You do this in coordination. You're going to go after these illegal immigrants. You do this in coordination with local law enforcement. You do not X local law enforcement out. And apparently that's what's happening in Minneapolis. Why, for example, with the Renee Good case, why wasn't the MPD on scene directing traffic? Had they been there directing traffic that day, I can guarantee you that Renee Good incident would have happened. Is that to say that Renee Good wouldn't have tried to obstruct these officers or block the roadway? Who knows? If she's a protester, activist, most likely she would have. But still, if the MPD was there, the Minneapolis Police Department, to direct traffic, I can guarantee you that situation would have never occurred. And this is why it's important that we think about getting back to state power, or returning a lot of these responsibilities that we hoisted on the federal government back to the states. Governor Greg Abbott in Texas was right to put up razor wire along the Rio Grande to protect his citizens from invasion. And each state should make its own decision regarding immigration. That isn't to say that the federal government, as the Constitution allows, Congress, can't come up with some type of uniform rule on naturalization. But the Constitution does make it clear that states do have the right to decide who or who doesn't stay in their state, who can be a resident, who can't be a resident. So I really think it's time that we call a constitutional convention and we nip this thing in the bud, because the optics don't look good here. When you have a police chief, now from everything he's saying here, he said in the beginning, look, we're all for going after these illegal immigrants. Now, yes, this is a left-leaning city. Everybody knows that. Minneapolis is a more Democrat than it is Republican. But when this Brooklyn Park police officer or pardon me, police chief is coming out and he's saying, look, this is what's happening to our own off-duty police officers. We got a serious problem, and the Trump administration and Kristi Noem, you name it, they need to deal with this. Again, call a constitutional convention, bring immigration back to the states, and I guarantee you, you're not going to have this issue. So tell me what you think in the comment section below. Quick video for today. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. Follow me at Instagram at Jason197711. Find me on Substack or go to Culture Confederacy at Culture Confed1 on X. This is the Culture Confederacy saying peace out. Stay safe, everybody. God bless. Keep up the culture, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.